Begin the Gemara today on Daf Lamed Dalet Amud Aleph, 6 lines down from the top of the Amud. The Gemara here continues with the halacha that we are discussing from the beginning of this Pedic, being mevatel, a get. And after the husband sends the get with a shliach, he's able to then send, or he himself could go and tell him that he wants to be mevatel the shlichus. So the Gemara brings the story as follows: Gidl bari Eloi, an individual by the name Gidl bari Eloi, shodel Gittin de biso, sent a get to his wife. Also shlicha, the shliach went and to the wife to give her the get. Ashkecha davi yasva v'novlo. He found his wife that she was sitting and weaving. Om Allah, he says to her, Hagitech, here's your get. You wanted to fulfill the shlichus and give her the get. Omralei, so she said to the shliach, Zil hashta, now leave, meha, from here, v'solamacha, and come tomorrow, you'll give me the get tomorrow. So the shliach went back to the husband, and he told the husband what happened, that the woman wasn't ready to accept the get. So pasach va'ama baruch hateva meitiv. When the husband heard this, so he said baruch hateva meitiv, thanking the Eibishter that she didn't accept the get and his wife is not divorced. So now, when he says baruch hateva meitiv, it sounds like he's making it clear that he's not interested in the shliach giving this get. So the question is, what's the halacha here? Is he still a shliach? Could he go back and give this get? Abaya says, Baruch HaTeva Meitiv, v'loi batel gita. Yes, he said, Baruch HaTeva Meitiv. So even though it sounds like he's being megala das, he's making it clear he's not interested in the get, but the get is not batel with this expression. Rava Oma, Baruch HaTeva Meitiv, u'batel gita. This expression of Baruch HaTeva Meitiv is clear enough and the get is batel. So what's the basis of the argument here? Says the Gemara, begilui daita begita kamiflagi. The argument here is when the husband doesn't clearly say that he's being mevatel the get, but he reveals his intent by this expression. Is that sufficient to be mevatel it? Dabai saw begilui daita begita lav milsihi, revealing this, saying baruch hateva meitiv is not strong enough to be mevatel the get. Mirav savar gilui daita begita milsihi, saying Baruch HaTeva Meitiv is revealing his intent and the get will be batel. So there's a machlekes in Rishonim how to learn the pshat in this argument regarding Gili Daita. The Tais of Siridir says that they're arguing about Dvarim Shebelev. Yes, he did say Baruch HaTeva Meitiv, which sounds to be pretty clear that he doesn't want to get, but it's not 100% clear. He didn't clearly say, I'm being mevatel this get here. It's still possible that he was thanking the Eibusha that she didn't get divorced yet, but he wasn't necessarily interested in being mevatel the shlichus. So therefore Abaye says it's considered to be dvarim shebelev, it's not clear enough. But Rava says, no, gili daita begita milsihi, that this is clear enough, and even though he didn't spell out clearly, but we can rely on this, it's not considered to be dvarim shebelev. That's a Tosfos Ritz pshat. From other Rishonim though, it's mashma, that even if it's not dvarim shebelev, it's clear what he means, but if he doesn't clearly say the word that I am being mevatel the get, it's not going to be batel. In order to be mevatel a shlichus, you have to clearly say the words that you're being mevatel the shlichus. Just being megala das of your intent is not good enough. So that's the argument here, whether gili das is words strong enough to be mevatel the shlichus or not strong enough to be mevatel. So the Gemara here brings what Abaye and Rava said from where they took the source of their opinion. Omar Rava said, Mina min Allah, what's my source for saying that Gili Das is enough to be mevatel a get? The Rav Sheishes Ashkele Gitelahu Gabre Bakarche. Rav Sheishes took from a certain individual a get against his will, which means he forced this individual to agree to appoint a shliach to write a get and give a get to his wife. V'amalu l'sadi hachi. And then this person came to the witnesses that he appointed by force that they should write the get, and he comes and tells those Eidim, Hachi Oma L'chu Rav Sheishes Levatel Gita. This is what Rav Sheishes has told you, that this get should be batel. This is what the husband says to the people writing the get, that Rav Sheishes told you that this get is batel, so therefore you can't write this get. Now, after the husband said this to them, Va'atzreche Rav Sheishes Gita Achrina. And Rav Sheishes says that, this shlichus here is batel, and they're going to have to write the get again. So, which actually, according to Rav Sheishes, this is going back to something we learned before on Daf Lamed Beis, Amud Beis. There, it said that according to Rav Sheishes, not only is the shlichus batel, but the actual get is also batel. So Rav Sheishes' opinion is that you can't use the same get once you mevatel the actual get itself. So over here, the husband didn't clearly say, I am being mevatel this get, or I am being mevatel this shlichus. He just said to them, Rav Sheshes has told you to be mevatel this. By speaking in such a way, well, apparently Rav Sheshes did not tell the Eidim that were writing the get that it should be batel. Adarabah, Rav Sheshes forced and wanted them to write the get. So this person was saying something that's not true. But speaking to them in this way is revealing his intent that he doesn't want the get to be a get. So from here, Rava learned out that even though he didn't clearly say the words, I am being mevatel the get, it's a gili das that he wants to be mevatel it and the get is batel. Abaye responds to this and says, no, Oto Rav Sheshes, mevatel gittin de inshave. Is Rav Sheshes a person that could be mevatel the get of an individual? What does this mean? He's telling the Eidim that Rav Sheshes said that the get is batel, and therefore what? Even if it's true that Rav Sheshes said so, why should they not have to continue writing the get? Rav Sheshes is not the husband. He doesn't have the koyach to be mevatel the shlichus or the get. So when he said that, it's really meaningless. So rather, something else must have happened over here. What happened here is iu batle. He clearly said that he's being mevatel this get. The fact that he's telling the Eidim that we're writing the get, he's saying this in the name of Rav Sheshes, that Rav Sheshes told you not to write this, mishum dapnoi. It's because over here he was being forced to write this get, and he was afraid to come and tell them clearly that he wants to be mevatel the get because there was someone there that would force him and hit him and not allow him to say this. Okay, but he must have been mevatel the get before, and then he came and told the shluchim that Rav Sheshes said so. But we know that that case must have been that he himself was mevatel the get. So there's no source from there. Now, Abaye said, "Mino aminullah." What's the source of my opinion that saying Baruch HaTova Meitiv is not sufficient to be megal to the gili das is not sufficient to be mevatel the get or the shlichus? So he brought from another story that Rav Yehuda Ashkelei Gitte l'chasani de Rav Yirmiyah Bira. Rav Yehuda forced the son-in-law of Rav Yirmiyah Bira to give a get, to appoint a shliach to write and to give a get. Ubatlei, and what happened is after this person went and appointed a shliach to write a get for his wife, he was forced to do so. But then Ubatlei, he went and he told the shliach, forget it, the shlichus is batel or the get is batel. So then Tana Ashkelei, Rav Yehuda went and forced him again to take from him, or that he should appoint a shliach to write the get. Again, this person came and was mevatel the get. So a third time, Rabbi Yehuda forced him to appoint a shliach to write a get, but now, in order to make sure that he's not going to be mevatel the shliach again, so for Amalu L'Sadi, he told the Eidim that were writing the get, put something in your ears, a cabbage or some kind of vegetable, something in your ear, to plug your ears, uksuvale, and write the get. So you won't hear him telling you that you want to be mevatel the get. Says the Gemara, now if you're going to say that if a person reveals his intent that he's not interested in this get being given, so that's sufficient to be mevatel the get, so what does it help that they're plugging their ears? Don't they see that this person is running after them and trying to tell him, don't write the get, don't write the get. They're going to try to avoid him. He's going to run after them, and they have their ears plugged, and they're not paying attention to him, but they see that that's clearly his intention. So isn't that a clear gili das that he doesn't want the get to be given? So how should that help? So that's Abaye's source. So it must be that just being megala das is insufficient. But Rava will answer to you, no, hi the korod basrayu, when they are running after the shliach that he appointed before to give the get, even though before he had to be forced to do this, so apparently he did not want to give the get, but at this point, when he's running after them, we can't be sure, this is not really considered to be a clear gili das, because maybe the amaluhu asher avale, maybe he's telling them, go quickly and give this get to my wife, to stop the end and the suffering of that individual, referring to himself. In other words, over here, if they plug their ears and this person is trying to run after them and to stop them giving the get, we can't be sure. It's not really a clear gili das. So according to the pshat of the Tosfos read in the Gemara before, in a case where a person says Baruch HaTova Meitiv, that is a clear gili das. We can't consider it to be dvarim shebalev. But here, though, it's not clear enough. It's not clear enough what the person means by running after the shliach that's writing the get, the Eidim that are writing the get. So therefore, this is not a gili das. So Abaye brought from a different case. I can bring you another source of a story that happened that proves that the gili das for a get is insufficient. The individual, there's an individual that said to people, if I will not come back for 30 days, so then this get here should be a get for my wife. Also, so he came on the 30th day, and a bridge, or I think the more accepted pshat is not a bridge, but the ferry that was supposed to bring him across the river into the city left already, and he couldn't enter into the city. He was standing and screaming, and he said, Chazud asai, see I came. We had this already before in the Gemara, just a few blot ago. So what was the halacha? Is the Tanai fulfilled? Do we consider this that he came? Well, he didn't actually come into the city, but it's an einus. It was out of his control. He couldn't make it. But Shmuel says, Lo yishmei masya. This is not considered that he arrived, even though it's an einus, but this is the halacha of ein einus begittin. When a person makes a Tanai, and then with an einus, he could not fulfill that Tanai, it doesn't matter. But the fact is, he didn't come into the city, the Tanai is fulfilled. He didn't come for 30 days, and therefore the get will take effect. That's the halacha by a get. Now, but the thing is, though, yeah, true, there's a halacha of ein einus begittin, but shouldn't we say that this is a person very clearly revealing his intent that he doesn't want the get to be given to his wife? That's why he's screaming, Chazud asai. So the fact that Shmuel said that you can still give the get, I see that gili das by a get is insufficient. That was Abai's raya. Rave says, no, you don't have any gili das here at all. Over there is the person saying and screaming that he wants to, or even being megala his das in any way that he wants to be mevatel the get. Over there, the person is screaming, look, I came. He's just screaming to say that he fulfilled his condition. But the fact is that he did not enter into the city, even though it's an einus, but he did not enter into the city, so he did not fulfill his night. So what Rav is saying is, if a person does say language that reveals clearly his intent that he wants to be mevatel the get, then you could say that gili daita begita is milsa, it's accepted. But over here, he's just coming to say, look, that the Tanai is fulfilled, that I'm here before the 30 days are up. And I feel that's all the person is revealing. He's saying, I fulfilled my Tanai. He's not telling us anything about the actual get itself. So this is not considered to be even a gili das. Another story the Gemara brings, there was a story with someone similar that said, so here this was a person that was married to his wife, Edison, the first stage of marriage, and she was waiting for him to get married, the full marriage, the nisuin. And finally, she lost her patience, so they made up. So the husband tells the wife, if in 30 days I'm not going to make a chuppah and fully marry you, so then so then I'm giving you a get, we'll be divorced, and that's it. When it came 30 days, on the 30th day, he says, look, I'm trying, I'm working, I'm preparing, but I can't make the chasna today. It can't happen. So it was an einus. So in this case, the question is, the condition is being fulfilled, but it's an einus. He really wanted to get married on that day. So does the get take effect or not? So the Gemara says, what concern is there here? This get for sure takes effect. Because if it's the fact that he wanted to get married to her on that day, but as in the einus he couldn't, so we already said before that halacha is ein einus begittin, a get that you connect to a condition, and then something out of your control happened, and the condition was fulfilled, the get takes effect, even though it was an einus. And even if you're going to say that this is considered to be a situation that he's being megala das, that he doesn't want to give the get, the truth is that itself is, as Taisus here points out, is up for discussion. The Gemara before said that Abaye considered this to be a gili das. Rava says it's not even considered to be a gili das at all, because he's just making the point that he fulfilled the Tanai, but he's not being megala anything about the actual get itself. But even if we will say that it's considered to be a gili das, so plukta the Abaye v'Rava, this is the argument of Abaye and Rava, and as we'll see soon in the Gemara, we paskin like Abaye that gili daita begita is ineffective, it's nothing. So therefore, the get takes effect here. Another similar story, a person said, similar case where a person was delaying getting married to his wife after the Edison, and he says, finally, if I'm not going to get married to you, that's the date we're setting, and if by then I don't get married, so then here you have a get, and the get will take effect. When Shchodesh Adar arrives, what happened? So this person says, I thought that I said that I have time until Chodesh Nisan. He was mistaken. So he didn't prepare, he wasn't ready. Now it's a Einus, I can't get married to the but I didn't realize. I thought I said until Chodesh Nisan. So again, the Gemara says the same thing. So what should we be concerned here about this get? This get for sure will take effect. Because if the person's argument is, I didn't realize what I said and now it's too late, it's a Einus, I can't get married to you today, Einan is Gittin. So we have the rule that we don't accept the concept of an Einus when it comes to a condition for a get. If we'll consider this to be a gili das, that he's being megala, that he doesn't want the get to take effect, so pluk to the Abaye v'Rava. This is the argument of Abaye and Rava, and we pass on like Abaye. So therefore, the get will take effect. Now the Gemara concludes after this whole sugya here, v'hilchase ken Nachman. We pass in like Rav Nachman that we had before on Daf Lamed Beis. Over there, Rav Nachman said that before Rabbi Gamliel made the takana that when a husband wants to be mevatel a get, he must be mevatel directly in front of the isha or the shliach. So it was done in front of a bezdin, and there Rav Nachman said, how much is a bezdin? 2. Bezdin, even though usually bezdin is 3, here a bezdin is 2. We pass like that halacha of Rav Nachman. And also v'hilchase ken Nachman, we pass like the second thing that Rav Nachman said, and this was at the end of Daf Lamed Gimel, where Rav Nachman said that we paskin like Rebbe in both of the arguments that Rebbe had with Rav Shimon ben Gamliel on Daf Lamed Gimel. What were the two arguments? Bekitzer, the first argument was Bidi Yeved, after the Takana of Rabbi Gamliel, that you must be mevatel if you want to in front of the Isha and the Shliach. You can't just do it in front of a Bezdin because there's a Chash of Mamzeir, so maybe a Takana of Agunis, as the Gemara explained before. So Rebbe says that Bidi Yeved, if you are mevatel, the bittul takes effect. In other words, if you are mevatel not in front of the Isha, the Shliach, Bidi Yeved, that bittul takes effect. That was one halacha that Rebbe said, not like Rav Shimon Gamliel. And the other halacha that Rebbe said was when a person appointed 10 shluchim. So the question is, do you have to be mevatel to get in front of all those 10 shluchim or not? So Rebbe says, you don't have to. You can be mevatel zeh shaloi b'fnei zeh, and the bittul takes effect. So Rav Nachman says that the halacha is like both of those, like Rebbe. And the Gemara concludes, v'hilchase ken Nachmeni. We also paskin like Nachmeni, which actually refers to Abaye in this last machlekes that we were just discussing regarding Gili Daita Begita. So Rashi says that the name Nachmeni was because Rabbe Bar Nachmeni raised Abaye, which was a Yasim, and therefore he was called with the name Nachmeni, which was the father of Rabbe. So he gave him the name Nachmeni. That's Rashi's pshat in this. There's another pshat here that Rabbi Kivege brings in the Gilyon Ashas from the Aruch, that Abaye was actually the nephew of Rabbe, and he gave him, his name was Nachmeni, but because it was the same name as his father, so Rabbe that raised him didn't want to call him with the name that it was his father's name, so he gave him the nickname Abaye instead. And Abaye, I believe it says, is the Rosh Tevis Asher B'chol Yeruchim Yosim, because it was a Yosim. Another interesting thing Rashi points out of here, that when we paskin here like Abaye, it's unusual because in Shas, any machlokes of Abaye and Rava, the halacha is always like Rava, besides 6 cases, which the Gemara says in Bab Metzia, the Rosh Tevis is Yal Kagam. So this case is the Gimel of Kagam, Gili Daita Begita. So this is an exception that we paskin here like Abaye. Zok Heilige Mishnah regarding writing a get. So here's another takana that Rabbi Gamliel was misakin regarding writing a get. Bari Shoina, in the beginning, Hayemishane Shmoi Ushma, when a get was written, so the name of the husband or the wife was changed in the get. What does it mean changed? Does it mean that they went and changed the get? But as Rashi explains, as we'll see in the Gemara, that if a husband or a wife had a certain name that they were called in one place, in one city, and then they moved to a different place, and there they got a new name, they were called with a different name, so then they would write the name in the get according to what the name was here, where the get was being written, even though in another place they were called with a different name. Or the same also b'shem ira. If they lived in a certain city, he lived in a certain city, she lived in a certain city, originally they came from one city, and now they moved to a different city. So they would write the name of the city where they're living now, where they're not where they originally came from. But now Hisker Rabbi Gamliel Azakin instituted Shihei Kosev, that you have to write in the get Ish Pliny. You have to write his name where he is now, where people call him with the name now. But also V'chol Shum Sheyashloi, and you have to add also V'chol Shum Sheyashloi. So there's actually a machlokes Yeshenu about this. From Rashi, it's mashma that you have to write his name, that he has presently and where he is, and then this line you have to add v'chol shum sheyesh lo, and any other name that he has, but you don't have to spell out what the other names are. Taisus here says v'chol shum sheyesh lo, you have to actually write his name, and also he's also called Miskaria, he's called another name, whatever the other name is. You have to spell out any other name he also has. Why was Rabbi Gamliel Masak in this? And the same with the Isha. Let me finish here the Mishnah. And same thing also, Isha Ploinis and V'chol Shum Sheyeshla. And you have to write the name of the woman that she has now, and also add Chol Shum Sheyeshla, or spell out the actual name. V'pnei Tikkun Oila. This is a tikkun in the world, and what the tikkun is, as Rashi says, because otherwise, in the future, she gets married and she has children, and then they'll look at the get, and people are going to say, this is not your husband. Your husband never divorced you. This is not his name. And they won't know that in that city he had this name, but in another city he had another name. So there could be a laz on the children. People will say the children are mamzedim. So if it was masakin, that you have to write in the name and chol shum sheyeshlo, so it shouldn't be any confusion. Now the Mishnah doesn't spell out here whether this takana applies also to the change that there could be in the name of the city that they write the person, the husband or the wife came from. So the Taisus Rit says here that this takana does not apply to the name of the city. They weren't chayshish for that. That's not included in the takana. But other Rishonim, the Ravid and others hold that the same takana applies to the name of the city as well. So Rav Yehuda Mashmuel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, how did this takana of Rabbi Gamliel come about? Because Sholchale b'nei Medina Sayam Rabbi Gamliel. People outside the Eretz Yisrael, so they sent to Rabbi Gamliel the following question. Bnei Adam, people, Haboim Misham Lekan. They come from Eretz Yisrael here to Medina Sayam. Shmo Yosef. So his name originally in Eretz Yisrael was Yosef, and V'koden le Yechanan. And here people call him with a different name, Yechanan. Or Yechanan, V'koden le Yosef, or the opposite. So what do we do? Heich Megarshin Shisein. How could they divorce their wives? What name do you write in the get? They're going to write one name, and then people are going to, in Eretz Yisrael, look at this get and say, hey, this is not this person, it's a different name. So that's when Amar Rabbi Gamliel Behiskin, Rabbi Gamliel instituted Shia Kaisvin Ish Pleini V'chol Shum Sheyeshle, and the same Isha Pleinis V'chol Shum Sheyeshla Mipnei Tikkun Olam, as it said in the Mishnah. Amar Rav Ashi, but Rav Ashi now says about this halacha, but who this chazik b'trei shmi. This whole halacha only applies if this person that's standing in front of us right now and he's asking us to write him a get, so we know that he has two names that he's called by. People here call him one name, in another place a different name. But if not, if there's no chazakah, if he's standing in front of us and today all we know is that he has one name, and that's what he's been called by, and the Mefarshim say this is 30 days has passed and that's the only name that he's known for, so then that's the only name you have to write into the get. And even if later you find out that there is another name that he was called by, it doesn't passel the get. Rabbi said to Ravashi, Rab Madi, Rab Elazar, Kaim Kavasech. These two Amiram, Rab Madi and Rab Elazar, also agreed to you. Tanya Kavaseh the Ravashi, now we learned in Braisa, like Ravashi said, because the Braisa says as follows: a person had two wives. Achas be Yehuda, one was living in Yehuda in Eretz Yisrael, and Achas begal, one in the north in Golov. And Veloishnei Shemus, and this person, his husband, has two names. Echad be Yehuda. In Yehuda he goes by one name, and Echad begalol, and in Golol he goes by another name. Now Begirish Isishte should be Yehuda, B'shmoi should be Yehuda. So when he divorced his wife in Yehuda, so he wrote in the get his name that he has in Yehuda. Vesishte should be Golol, B'shmoi should be Golol. And then when he divorced his wife in Golol, so here he wrote a different name in the get, the name that he has in Golol. Eino Mugareshes. So she's not divorced because he has to write both names, like the Takon of Rabbi Gamliel. Achi Yigarish Sishta should be Yehuda, B'shmoi should be Yehuda, Vishem the Golol. Imai, when he divorces his wife in Yehuda, he has to write both names. And the same, the sister should be Golol, B'shmoi should be Golol, Vishem the Yehuda Imai. And there as well, he has to write his name of Yehuda and Golol in the get. So here, this is the first part of the Braisa. This Takon, this Halach of Rabbi Gamliel. But now the Braisa continues. Yotza l'mokim acher. If this person is now living not in Yehuda, not in Golol, he's in a different place. V'girish be'echad man, and he divorces his wife with one of his names. Mugarashas. Over here, she will be divorced, even though he didn't write both names. So the Gemara asks, what's the difference between the Reisha of this Braisa and the Sefer here, when he leaves to another place? But in the beginning of the Braisa, you say that Shem the Golol imai, if he's divorcing his wife in Yehuda, he also has to write the name of Golol with it as well. Why? So why, if he goes to another place, does the halacha change? So it must be the pshat in this Braisa is like Rav Ashi said, that Hodis Chazik, in the Reisha, he was living in Yehuda or he was living in Golol, and we knew that he has two different names. So there you have to write both names. And the law is chazik. But then when you have a person that comes to a new place and we don't know that he had any other name beforehand, and here he's being called only with one name, that's the chazakah. So then you don't have to write another name. That's what the Braisa means in the Sefer when he went to a different place. Shema Mino. So this is a clear proof to the halacha of Rav Ashi. Says the Gemara, Hayhi dahava korolo Miriam. There was a woman that she went by the name Miriam, but uporte Sarah. Some people referred to her as Sarah, but most people referred to her as Miriam. So now you're going to have to write both names in the get, right? Or at least v'chol shum sheyeshla, in addition to the name. But which is the main name that you write? So Amri Nerdoi, in the Yeshiva Nerdoi, they said Miriam. So over here, because most people refer to her by Miriam, so that's the name you spell out, and then you add v'chol shum sheyeshla. Then you add, like I said before, either the pshat is that you just add this line, chol shum sheyeshla, or you add the second name. You have to spell it out, but that's the one that most people refer to. That's the first name you write. But v'loy Sarah, chol shum sheyeshla. You can't write on the get Sarah, which only some people call her by this name, and then add the chol shum sheyeshla. You go by what most people call her by. That's the first name that you write in the get.